The X-37B, which is an unmanned and robotic spaceplane, looks a lot like a mini space shuttle to many spectators. In addition to its modest size, the X-37B has another unique feature. It can accommodate 2 X-37Bs in the payload bay of a defunct space shuttle. Additionally, the X-37B may be reused by landing on a runway at the end of each mission. The X-37B has remained a closely guarded secret for decades, thanks to the combined efforts of NASA, DARPA, and the Air Force. What do we know about the X-37B, and does it have the potential to be a target in a future space war? Let's examine these questions together. The X-37B's timeline. The X-37B program was launched by NASA in 1999. Finally, in 2004, DARPA, a classified agency that conducts research and development on cutting-edge projects, received it. After some time, it became known as the Orbital Test Vehicle, which is launched into orbit connected with an Atlas V or Falcon 9 rocket, and was finally accommodated within the Air Force's Rapid Capabilities Office. First launched in 2010, the X-37B spent 2,865 days in orbit before being retired in 2012. A spacecraft in long-term orbits. It's hoped that the X-37B, with its extraordinary orbital endurance of 780 days, would collect data on the best practices for reusable vertical launch spacecraft and conduct experiments while in orbit. These results are then returned to Earth for further examination. These spaceplanes are technology demonstrators for everything from navigation and control to high temperature and locking to automated orbital flights. It's not as big as you think. The X-37B's payload bay is only 8 feet long, so there isn't a lot of storage for cargo on board. While the total length of the X-37B is 29 feet, it uses lithium-ion batteries in space. But while it is in orbit, the solar cells emerge from the payload bay. Reusable crafts may also be present in China. China may also have a reusable spacecraft, according to reports. It's said to be a vertical launch and a horizontal landing craft. It was seen when it landed at Ulksalik Airport in Inner Mongolia, roughly 500 miles away, when it took off from Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center in Jiangsu Province in 2021. Another launch and recovery also took place in 2020. What are the military capabilities of these spaceplanes? The idea that this technology could be put to military use is probably just a fantasy based on science fiction films. A lot of information regarding the Chinese spacecraft is yet unknown to us. The payload of the X-37B is so little that it is unlikely to be able to carry any weaponry. Since this American vehicle resembles a satellite in terms of orbit, it is very easy to locate. The situation in space is far from pleasant. When China attempted to destroy one of their own satellites in 2007, they utilized an intercontinental ballistic missile with a nuclear payload. An estimated 3,000 pieces of space debris were generated as a result. A Russian anti-satellite missile was launched last November, and it managed to destroy one of their own satellites in the process. Astronauts on the International Space Station were forced to seek shelter in a capsule after 1,500 pieces of orbital debris were released. According to a recent investigation into the definition of space war, the Space Force plays a unique role in national security. A theory and a strategy must be established according to the report's findings. The X-37B could possibly be reassigned to research satellite survival and space debris. The X-37B could benefit the Space Force if it could generate an early warning for space debris. The X-37B spaceplane. Is it actually a weapon? The X-37 project has been going forward in secrecy for the entire 21st century. Designed by Boeing, the X-37 is a robotic, unmanned spacecraft created to demonstrate reusable space technologies. Currently, the U.S. Air Force operates the X-37B, conducting mysterious orbital missions and giving few public disclosures. What we do know about the X-37 is that the technology is reusable. Companies and agencies throughout the industrial spectrum are hurrying to adopt reusable technologies. Outwardly, reusable materials efforts are sometimes advertised as sustainability efforts or an effort to eliminate waste, focused toward environmental friendliness. Certainly, reusable products are eco-conscious, but reusable products are also cost-effective. Utilizing anything once is a pricey proposition, and cost-effectiveness rather than sustainability is likely the key reason for corporations trying to employ reusable technology. Towing charges are extremely restricting within the field of space exploration. In many respects, our premier space exploration companies and agencies know precisely what they want to do, say go to Mars or construct a lunar colony, and they know how to do it, yet they simply can't pay for it. Consider America's Project Apollo, humankind's landmark space exploration achievement which landed men on the surface of the moon. Between 1960 and 1973, the U.S. spent $25.8 billion on Project Apollo, the equivalent of $257 billion in 2020 dollars. Last year, NASA's whole budget for all projects was $23 billion. Public support for space exploration has declined since the Cold War, despite the country's need for it. Companies are working to create reusable space technologies to get over the current financial constraints. One such example is the Falcon 9, which was constructed by SpaceX and is the first reusable rocket of its kind to reach orbit. SpaceX can refly the most expensive elements of the rocket due to reusability, which lowers the cost of access to space. Boeing's X-37, another example of cost-effective reusable space technology, was launched into orbit using the Falcon 9. To design the X-37, Boeing based it on the X-40. The X-37 is a 120% scaled-down derivative of the X-40. In 1999, NASA began working on the project, and Boeing was chosen to build an orbital vehicle. NASA spent $109 million during the project's development phase, which lasted 4 years. Another $16 million was committed by the U.S. Air Force and $67 million by Boeing. The X-37, a working, reusable orbital spacecraft with a lift-to-drag ratio similar to that of the space shuttle, was the result of the expenditure. To keep the X-37 program classified, NASA handed control of it over to the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency in 2004. However, DARPA has provided some of the information to the general public. Tests and achievements of the X-37. The high-altitude research plane Scaled Composites White Knight initially flew with the X-37 mounted beneath it in 2005. First, the X-37 underwent structural improvements, and plans were prepared to undertake the first drop test in which the X-37 would be released from the White Knight in flight. In the midst of a series of postponed drop tests, the White Knight ultimately released the X-37 on April 7, 2006. The X-37's propulsion system was broken, so it merely swung back to Earth. We had a successful glide phase of the test. In the end, the X-37 overran the runway and landed awkwardly, causing only minor damage. The X-37B was launched into orbit by an Atlas V rocket. Amateur astronomers who were keeping an eye out for the orbiting spacecraft claimed they had observed the X-37B in low Earth orbit, circling the Earth once every 90 minutes, according to information provided by the Air Force. After 224 days in orbit, the spacecraft returned to Earth in December. There have been additional X-37B missions since the OTV-1. In 2020, OTV-6 was the most recent. During the mission, a satellite carrying experimental payloads was released and is now orbiting the Earth. All indications point to the Air Force continuing to test the enigmatic reusable X-37B, leaving us all to wonder just what they're up to in that airspace above us. Different military branches have had it over the years. 2 X-37B vehicles were handed from NASA to the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, or DARPA, in 2004. According to a report, the robotic spy planes were transferred to the newly found Space Force in 2020 after being handled by the U.S. Air Force for many years. That's all for today, guys. If you like this video, make sure to leave a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and press the bell icon for any new updates. See you in the next one.